Hi there, and welcome to this quick and snappy crash course on vocal anatomy and function. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of phonation, how your vocal folds come together in all kinds of amazing ways to create a dazzling array of sounds for singers. And guess what? It all happens right at the level of the vocal folds. Ready to explore? Let's jump in. One of the hot topics when it comes to phonation is obviously registers. You've probably heard the question, what register are you in? Or what register is that singer in? So I dive deep into understanding and developing registers in my Vocal Function 101 lecture, but if you missed that, no worries. I've got you covered with a quick little refresher. So, what's a register? I'm going to use the definition by the amazing Jeannie LaVetrie. It's basically a group of sounds that share a similar tonal quality and have a unique way of functioning in your throat. The terms we use for registers are just a way to really describe the different vocal fold setups. And here's a key takeaway. You're always mixing something or blending something. It might feel a little tricky to wrap your head around, so before we dive in, let's break it down by starting with the anatomy and function, step by step, to make sure it's all crystal clear. Ready? Let's do this. All right, first things first. Let's zoom out and get the big picture of the larynx. Think of it as a complex, hollow structure sitting in the front and center of your neck. It's made up of several key parts: cartilage, ligaments, membranes, and muscles, all working together to keep it suspended and connected to the surrounding structures. Here's a really fun way to visualize it that I learned from Maddie Tarbox. Imagine the basket of a hot air balloon. The larynx sits just above the trachea and flows seamlessly into the rest of the vocal tract. Cool, right? All right, let's dive even deeper. Time to zoom in on what the larynx actually does. Its main gig: keeping you safe while swallowing by closing off the airway to stop food and drink from sneaking into your lungs. Have you ever said, "Oh, it went down the wrong tube"? That's exactly what happens when something slips past your vocal folds and lands in the airway. Cue the coughing. Pretty cool, huh? But wait, there's more. Over time, the larynx leveled up to handle speech, known as the voice box or organ of phonation. It's like a well-guarded castle, protecting all the parts responsible for creating sound. Plus, it's super mobile, gliding up and down in your neck like a pro. Don't believe me? I want you to try this. Place your fingers on your larynx. I want you to yawn. Notice the movement down. Now I want you to swallow. Notice the movement up. Amazing, right? Let's break it down. The larynx is built on 6 key structures that form its framework: 3 unpaired cartilages, 2 paired cartilages, and 1 super important bone. These 6 are the MVPs of sound production. Without them, no voice, no music, no fun. Ready to meet the team? Let's go. Check out the side view of the thyroid cartilage. Shout out to Ken Hub for the awesome visuals. You'll see more of his work coming up. I highly recommend checking out his website. The thyroid cartilage is the biggest player in the laryngeal framework, forming the front and sides of the larynx. Picture it kind of like a Roman shield, open in the back, but offering solid frontline protection of your vocal mechanism in the front. Those broad, flat sides meet at a V-shaped point called the laryngeal prominence, aka the Adam's apple. On the back, each side stretches into 2 horns. The superior horn connects to the hyoid bone via the thyroid membrane, and the inferior horn links up to the cricoid cartilage through the cricoid joint. Now, this connection creates an awesome rocking motion between the thyroid and the cricoid cartilages. Ready to meet the cricoid cartilage? Let's roll. 7. Next up, the cricoid cartilage. This slightly smaller cartilage sits right below the thyroid cartilage, forming the base of the larynx and connecting to the top of the trachea. Kind of picture a signet ring. The narrow front arch is like the band, while the wider back is the signet itself. Pretty fancy, huh? Functionally, it's like a rocking stage for muscles to do their thing, creating all kinds of cool vocal fold configurations. Let's keep going. Last but not least, in the unpaired cartilage lineup, meet the epiglottis. This leaf-shaped superstar is made of elastic cartilage and covered in a slippery mucous membrane. Its stalk is anchored right at the center of the thyroid cartilage, as shown here, and stretches upward into the vocal tract with its top edge hanging out just behind the tongue. Its main job? Playing bodyguard for your airway. When you swallow, the larynx rises and the epiglottis flips down like a trapdoor, sealing off the laryngeal inlet to keep food and drinks from going rogue into your lungs. Pretty impressive for a little leaf, huh? Before we dive into the paired cartilages, let's take a quick 3-minute video tour of all the unpaired cartilages. This will help you see how everything kind of fits together in the larynx and gives you the full picture of the structure. Enjoy.
The laryngeal skeleton is formed principally by the hyoid bone, the thyroid cartilage, and the cricoid cartilage. The hyoid bone is shaped like a horseshoe. The muscles of the neck support it, and it, in turn, supports the base of the tongue. The thyroid cartilage, better known as the Adam's apple, is shield-shaped with a notch on its top edge. The thyrohyoid membrane connects it to the hyoid bone above. The cricoid is a complete signet-shaped ring with its broad aspect posterior. You can easily feel the cricoid cartilage as a firm ridge 3 to 4 fingers breadths below the hyoid bone and 3 to 4 fingers breadths above the tracheal notch. The cricoid attaches to the thyroid cartilage laterally at 2 cricothyroid joints, allowing both cartilages to move independently and as a unit as the muscles contract. The relatively avascular cricothyroid membrane connects the cricoid and thyroid cartilages anteriorly in the midline. Let's look at the internal structure of the larynx. The epiglottis is an important pharyngeal landmark during intubation. It's a curved leaf-shaped structure attached to the inside of the thyroid cartilage. Its upper rounded edge projects into the pharynx. The stalk at the base of the epiglottis allows it to fold over the glottis. This flexion helps protect from aspiration by directing food and liquid into the esophagus. The next key landmarks are the arytenoid cartilages. These irregular, pyramid-shaped cartilages sit on the upper posterior rim of the cricoid ring. Located on top of the arytenoids, the corniculate and cuneiform cartilages add bulk and shape to the mucosal-covered arytenoid bulges. The vocal cords are ligaments that project forward from each arytenoid to the inside midpoint of the thyroid cartilage. Muscles move these arytenoids to tense, relax, and swing the vocal cords from side to side. The cords open on inhalation, they close on exhalation and when protecting the larynx. Vibration of the cords creates sound. Change in the tension or thickness of the cords alters pitch.
And take a breath. Again. All right.
This is a typical view of the larynx during intubation. Here you can see the curved epiglottis above, the bulges of the arytenoids below. The triangular gap between the vocal cords is called the glottis. Above and to the sides of the true vocal cords are the false vocal cords. Look how close the esophagus is to the larynx. Some landmarks may be partially hidden during a difficult intubation, so it's important to be able to recognize them even in partial view.
First up in the paired cartilage squad are the arytenoid cartilages. These little pyramids sit on the upper sides of the cricoid cartilage, right on the signet ring part. They're directly connected to the vocal folds and are super flexible, able to rotate and rock to create different vocal fold configurations. One of their most famous moves, helping you nail that creaky or fry voice. Give it a try. Next up, the corniculate cartilages. Try saying that 10 times fast. These tiny cone-shaped cartilages hang out on top of the arytenoids. They're so small, they're practically little bumps on the airy epiglottic fold. While they don't do a ton of heavy lifting, they do have an important job, anchoring the back end of the airy epiglottic muscle. Small, but mighty. The hyoid bone. Check out this super cool U-shaped bone. It's totally one of a kind because it doesn't connect to any other bones. Instead, it's linked to nearby structures by muscles and ligaments. The most important thing to remember, the entire larynx hangs from it. It's like a trusty hitching post for all the extrinsic muscles of the larynx and helps keep everything stable and in place with those muscle connections. Talk about a backbone without being a backbone. All right, we've covered the cartilages and bones. Now let's get into the muscle action. The intrinsic muscles of the larynx are like the behind-the-scenes crew, moving and coordinating to create an endless variety of sounds right at the level of the vocal fold. These muscles are split into 4 groups based on what they do. Adductors, they bring the vocal folds together. Adductors, they pull the vocal folds apart. Then we've got muscles that stretch the vocal folds, making them long and lean, and muscles that contract them, making them short and thick. Meet the LCAs, or lateral cricoarytenoid muscles. These muscles are like the sidekicks of the vocal folds, attaching to the lateral sides of the vocal mechanism and linking the cricoid cartilage to the arytenoid cartilages. Woo! Their main job, adducting the front part of the vocal folds. When they contract, they rotate the arytenoids, swinging the vocal folds together, like the perfect team. Say hello to the inner arytenoids, aka the transverse and oblique arytenoids. Now, these muscles are like the backstage crew of your larynx, working behind the scenes to adduct, bring together the vocal folds. They pull the arytenoid cartilages closer, closing off the back part of the glottis, the gap between your vocal folds. This move is essential for making sound, as it lets the vocal folds vibrate when air passes through them. The inner arytenoids also help control pitch and volume, and they even play a role in keeping food and drink where they belong during swallowing. Pretty important stuff. Meet the posterior cricoarytenoid, PCA, muscles. These little guys are located in the larynx and attached to the back of the cricoid cartilage and the arytenoid cartilages. Their main job, abducting, pulling apart the vocal cords, by rotating the arytenoid cartilages outward. This action opens the glottis, the gap between the vocal cords, letting air flow into your lungs. The PCAs are the VIPs when it comes to breathing. They're the only ones responsible for opening the vocal cords. So yeah, they're pretty essential. Let's hit a pause for a sec and see how the last 3 muscles team up to adduct and abduct the vocal folds. All right, here you'll see the PCA and the LCA muscles in action, bringing the vocal folds together and pulling them apart. Then the inner arytenoids step in, giving that extra push to firmly pull the vocal folds together. Want to see more? Check out 3D medical imaging for some mind-blowing visuals of your voice in action. Meet the posterior cricoarytenoid PCA muscles. These little guys are located in the larynx and attached to the back of the cricoid cartilage and the arytenoid cartilages. Their main job, abducting, pulling apart the vocal cords, by rotating the arytenoid cartilages outward. This action opens the glottis, the gap between the vocal cords, letting air flow into your lungs. The PCAs are the VIPs when it comes to breathing. They're the only ones responsible for opening the vocal cords. So yeah, they're pretty essential. Let's hit a pause for a sec and see how the last three muscles team up to adduct and abduct the vocal folds. All right, here you'll see the PCA and the LCA muscles in action, bringing the vocal folds together and pulling them apart. Then the inner arytenoids step in, giving that extra push to firmly pull the vocal folds together. Want to see more? Check out 3D medical imaging for some mind-blowing visuals of your voice in action. Now, let's move on to the muscles that stretch, lengthen, contract, and shorten the vocal folds. First up, the cricothyroid muscle. This muscle hangs out in the larynx, stretching between the cricoid cartilage below and the thyroid cartilage above. Its main job, lengthening and tensing the vocal cords by tilting the thyroid cartilage forward. This tightens the vocal folds and raises the pitch of your voice, making the cricothyroid muscle essential for controlling pitch while speaking or singing. I like to think of it as the head register muscle. It's the key to those higher notes and essential for flexibility and agility of the voice. All right, say hello to the thyroarytenoid muscle. This little guy is nestled in your larynx, connecting the thyroid cartilage to the arytenoids. Its main job, shortening and relaxing the vocal cords to lower your pitch. I like to consider this bad boy as the chest voice muscle. It also helps bring the vocal folds together, playing a key role in making sound. Think of it as the muscle that fine-tunes your tone and controls the intensity of your voice while you speak or sing. When the cricothyroid and thyroarytenoid muscles team up, they work like a well-oiled machine with the right training, stretching and relaxing the vocal folds to give you a full range of pitches and total control over your voice. I mean, come on, now that's some serious vocal mastery. Meet the vocalis muscle, which lives right inside the vocal folds. It's actually a part of the thyroarytenoid muscle, running parallel to the vocal ligament along the length of the folds. Its main job? Fine-tuning the tension in the vocal folds to give you precise control over pitch and tone. It tweaks small sections of the vocal folds to adjust pitch and intensity, helping create those subtle variations in vocal tone that make your speech or singing sound so dynamic. Think of it as your voice's precision instrument. It's pretty cool. All right, let's hit pause once again and check out how the pitch regulators work. Okay, first up, the cricothyroid muscle. Watch it contract and tilt the cartilages toward each other. As they peel back part of the image, you'll see the vocal folds stretching. Then they bring in the thyroid muscle, and you can see how it contracts, making the vocal folds thicker. Now, from the bird's eye view, you'll get another look at the stretch and contraction in action. Ment Athlete does an amazing job with this, so definitely give them a look. All right, you made it. Imagine this. The muscles in our vocal mechanism can work together to create powerful, clear sounds, pull apart for breathier tones, think like Billie Eilish, stretch and thin for really high pitches, think Mariah Carey, or shorten and contract for those crazy belty notes, think Adele. The human voice can make so many unique sounds. From belting to smooth jazz to really bright, crisp ping of head voice like Frankie Valli, there's really an endless range. And that's just the beginning. As a somatic voice work teacher, it's my job to create exercises that help elicit specific behaviors in the throat, giving you a wide range of sounds to use at your disposal. Now, I know you just learned all about the muscles, but remember, you cannot directly tell any of those muscles to do anything. Again, it's my job to elicit the behaviors to see if we can get those muscles to do something different. So again, it's really all about helping students coordinate these muscles so they can access any sound with ease and comfort. All right, be sure to check out my first lecture where I dive into exercises for accessing specific sounds like chest and head voice. All right, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.